and welcome to the Beauty Chronicles. I'm Meredith Jones, a professor of gender studies who loves popular culture.
And I'm Carla, Meredith's trusty sidekick.
In these Beauty Chronicles, we talk about all sorts of fascinating and sometimes grotesque things to do with cosmetic surgery, media, popular culture, celebrity, and much more. So, if you're confused by the Kardashians or baffled by Botox, this is the place for you.
The fuck was that film?
Look, we've got, yeah.
Like,
What?
There was a point, it was the scene where the Barbies, where they worked out that to snap the Barbies out of their Kendom trance of servitude to the men, they had to remind them of the cognitive dissonance of having to be both perfect, beautiful, and successful professionally, which is kind of what the Barbie is. So in order to snap them back into their true Barbiness, which is an impossibility in the real world, they needed to be told that it was impossible in the real world. It was kind of like this recursive mind fuck. I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
That's quite a sort of profound and very complicated thing to happen in a script, isn't it?
I don't think they were trying to be clever with that. And well, maybe they were. Maybe a conversation with those screenwriters would be worth having, because for all of the marketing hype around its unconventional, daring, edgy plot and message, it was nothing of this. It was just a rebranding. I have a friend who has a 18-year-old, 17-year-old daughter who thinks that the film was feminist.
Yeah, this is the thing. I came out of it, feeling very sad, but that's a different thing. It was definitely what I call feminism 101.
It wasn't even that.
It was like
Barbie had to apologize to Ken for ignoring him. Like it was Barbie's fault that Ken was created to be superfluous. Not the fucking CEO, not the Mattel, not the company that created these stupid things. It was Barbie's fault.
Yeah, I think that part failed. I think what they were trying to do, if I'm being generous,
okay, be generous
in that part, is they were trying the whole sort of Ken revolution, the Ken Wars or the Ken Revolution, whatever, the Ken Cusser house, etc. I thought that a generous reading of that is that they were incels.
Yeah, totally.
And that commentary didn't quite come out. Like it didn't come out as being critical enough of the incel movement and of men's rights movements.
And also I don't think those Ken dolls, they're not really incels. Like I don't think they were ever set up to be these things that were superfluous or ignored, but they were set up as these kind of ideal men. That is the kind of man that the stereotypical Barbie would actually fall for because he's tall and handsome and, I
don't think...
And incels are like a dude who can't talk to women because he's spent too much time behind a fucking computer.
And definitely
clicking on Andrew Tate videos. I do think
Edison videos,
yeah, that whole kind of genre of or that rabbit hole of despair.
No, I think in heaps of ways the film doesn't work, kind of conceptually, and there's no calling it radical in any.
No, it's gender normative, cisgender normative. Like she's scared of fucking cellulite. That's why she goes to the real world. She's scared of cellulite. The horror. And when she becomes real, it's not her cellulite that she gets, but a vagina. Like it's really turfy.
so much. Well, I don't know if it's turfy, but I've got so much to talk about to do with the vagina. Yeah, I've thought about that heaps. How about the banner that when she has her sort of going away party and it says, "Bon voyage to reality and good luck restoring the membrane that separates our world from theirs so you don't get cellulite." I did love that naughtiness of the space-time continuum being actually more than once in the same sentence as cellulite.
Right, okay.
So at one point she says, "What can I do to repair the rip in the space-time continuum? Get my feet back." What she means is get my high
heels back, yeah.
And that cellulite gone and generally not turn into Weird Barbie. I mean, to have cellulite in the space-time continuum, a kind of matching pair, in terms of a rip in the membrane, a devastating moment in humanity. Yes, it's hilarious, but it's also just, it could be read as quite a serious comment. You know, lots of people are trained to think that something like cellulite or something similar is the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
Or is something to...
It's a horror.
Yes, a horror.
Yeah, yeah. Ryan Gosling was amazing. Like he basically carried the film, and his performance was actually, like, I did feel as though he'd been watching Andrew Tate videos and had kind of adopted that sort of incel stuff. But yeah, his emotional journey was actually kind of there was more depth to it. And maybe that's because of his performance capability. You know, he's very good at comedy. Like, I don't know that Margot Robbie has the same depth as an actor, but I don't think her storyline was kind of the logic of it. It just didn't give her much to work with.
Yeah, she was so busy being stereotypical that there wasn't much room for anything else. And of course, that made it a slightly depthless character.
Yeah.
You know, I like to use the phrase deeply shallow, and that's in a way what Barbie is. Maybe because there's so much less to Ken in terms of his history, his place in, you know, his place in the world in terms of being an icon of XYZ. Maybe Ryan Gosling had more room to move.
I mean, the other thing that I found sort of annoying was how they started off with this whole segregation of the sexes. And, you know, kind of a logical, perhaps more radical thing to do would have been to break that segregation down, but they never did.
I didn't want it to be broken down at the end. When it was coming to the kind of, you know, final crunch, what would happen at the end of this war? Would the Kens and Barbies live in harmony and have equal rights? I was thinking, no, go back to the matriarchy. Yeah. You know, and I was really glad when that happened. And when that line came, you know, something like, the Kens will have equal rights in Barbie land once women have equal rights
in the other world. Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was fair. I didn't this, you know, multi-gendered utopia when there isn't one, when the real world isn't one.
Yeah, I guess I know that the reason there are less women in STEM subjects is easily traced back to when toys started being gendered. So these toys are for boys, these toys are for girls. The computer toys ended up in the boys' aisles. And the chemistry toys and the Meccano ends up in the aisles with the boys. And I thought maybe Ken could feel isolated because he's in the wrong aisle. He's with the girls, but maybe if he could only hook up with the G.I. Joes.
I love that reading.
I love
that reading, Carla. Ken's just in the wrong aisle. I think, you know, Mattel would say, oh, but Barbie's aspirational. You know, Barbie's a doctor. She's a lawyer. Boys get a chemistry set, right? There's a chemistry set in the boys' aisle that actually teaches boys, well, sort of, to do chemistry. But Barbie is just a chemist.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties in with the before-after that we were talking about last time. is you just get the after with Barbie. You get none of the process of becoming a chemist. So she just is a chemist. You don't see her studying. You don't see her failing. You don't see her trying to get into university. You don't see any of the process of becoming a chemist or becoming president or becoming anything.
Yeah.
She just is at the same time as she has this quintessential, stereotypically, usually white, thin body.
Mm. Yeah.
Can we talk about some of the other Barbies that weren't the stereotypical? Because I found, so I think the first one we saw was Happy Family Midge. And
was that the pregnant one?
Pregnant Barbie.
They had to kind of ban it, like they kept in a corner?
Yeah, well, she was behind a fence in Barbie.
She was trapped behind a not white picket fence. It was grey.
Behind a fence, yeah. She comes as part of a family. She's been discontinued, and she has a detachable magnetic pregnant stomach with a removable fetus, but crucially, no genitals. So she can't actually, she has to have a cesarean. There's no, and I don't know how the fetus comes about, but it happens. But she wasn't discontinued because she's a complete freak, like perhaps even more of a freak than any other Barbie. She was discontinued because Mattel was accused of encouraging teen pregnancies, and the American Christian right went ballistic over this doll in 2002.
I reckon that now they might be all for it.
They could be. She would have to only come with a husband, though, I think. She couldn't be sold separately.
Did she have the same, did she wear that same getup as a doll?
I don't know.
That she wore in the film, which was pretty, it was a bit
pregnancy outfit.
It was a bit like your nightie that you're wearing in our.
How dare you? Yeah. Pregnancy outfits are a bit nighty-ish. Yeah. Empire line.
Yeah.
The other Barbies that I found interesting, so most of them, or many of them were released in this 2006 line called Fashionista Barbie. And many of them had sort of different skin tones, different kinds of hair. And there were four body types: tall, which is taller than ordinary Barbie, petite, which is shorter than ordinary Barbie, but tall and petite are still very thin. And then there's curvy Barbie, who's the same height as petite Barbie, but has some curves. And a group of researchers, so these were released in 2016, and a group of researchers, psychologists, did some tests only with pictures of these Barbies. All I can think is they didn't have enough funding to actually buy the dolls. They did because academics are very poor. So they didn't get funding, I assume, to buy actual dolls. So they did the research with pictures of the dolls. And they asked a whole lot of little girls, I think just under 100 in a primary school, what they thought of these different Barbies. And by the way, so they gave them the different shapes: curvy, tall, ordinary. No, I think she's called regular, curvy, tall, ordinary, and petite pictures. But they were all white. And they all had the same hair because they didn't want to skew the results with different shades. But of course, that's problematic in itself. The little girls, in terms of the negatives that they came up with about these dolls, they said that the curvy doll was not pretty, she was chubby, she was fat, and she had no friends. But the original doll, that's what she's called, original, not stereotypical or regular, the original Barbie was sad and not smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The tall Barbie was mean.
Mm.
But the petite Barbie didn't have any negatives. Nevertheless, the girls said the Barbie they'd most like to play with would be the original one.
And what was the age group?
They were primary school. I think they were
32 to 35-year-olds.
Yes, could be.
Yeah. So they were primary school. Interesting, because it's almost like the sort of already they've absorbed the sort of cultural beliefs around.
Exactly. And in fact, those researchers named the name of the article is "You can buy a child a curvy Barbie doll, but you can't make her like it." The other discontinued Barbies and these were partly what made me feel really sad towards the end of the film. They were in the Weird Barbie's house towards the end. There was Growing Up Skipper and the one whose boobs grow when you pump her arms up and down. So she's discontinued. There was also Video Girl Barbie, who says, "I have a TV in my back." And I guess Growing Up Skipper was discontinued, just I don't really know why. Maybe little girls hated her, maybe
What was her point of difference?
You pump her arms and boobs grow.
I think that must have been the Christian right as well, surely.
Maybe, unless it was a feminist backlash. I don't know. I haven't looked into that. But the reason
you can't sexualize a doll. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, as if Barbie isn't fully sexualized anyway. But the reason Video Girl Barbie, I have a TV in my back, was discontinued is because the FBI put out a cyber crime alert. She was brought out in 2010, and they said that her ability to stream up to 30 minutes of recording onto a computer was a potential dangerous tool for pedophiles. I don't understand.
Hold on. She could stream, did her television actually work?
Apparently, she could stream up to 30 minutes of recording onto a computer. So I guess you could record on her.
Oh, maybe she had a camera, and then it would show. Hold on a second. We need to look into this.
She's called Video Girl Barbie. And I loved her line in the film, "I have a TV in my back. You know whose dream that is? Nobody's dream." But
why in the back?
So you can look at her bum at the same time? Oh, because boobs would get in the way. She can't have it on the front. She's got her boobs on the front.
Boobs, yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah, of course.
So what you can do with her...
Yeah, tell me, and then I'll tell you why that sequence made me sad.
Mattel's just processing my bloody privacy preferences.
Oh, okay.
It's taking a bit of time.
Just say yes to everything.
I've just rejected everything.
Oh, and
it's stuck processing at 98%. Because, this is a clunky website. Hold on.
The Mattel website probably won't tell you why it was discontinued.
So, Barbie Video Girl Doll. It's Barbie Doll Vision. Okay. Create movies from Barbie doll's point of view with a real camera inside Barbie doll. Camera lens is in the necklace and the video screen is on the back. It includes a USB plug-in cord. So what you could do, I guess, was film up to half an hour of footage and then plug it into your computer.
And upload it. Yeah, of course, people who use Barbies as dildos, and that's a thing, but I imagine you have to be careful with the arms. Of course, would get a very specific arms kind of video footage. But that's more an adult practice, I guess. The reason, though, that discontinued Barbies sequence at the end in Weird Barbie's house made me sad was it really reminded me of Alien Resurrection. You know, where Ripley goes into the lab and she sees all the versions of herself that were failed versions.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, my God.
I don't like those scary films.
Alien Resurrection is really beautiful and really feminist.
Okay, I'll watch it.
So sorry for the spoiler, but yeah, that happens in Alien Resurrection. Sigourney Weaver, Ripley, goes into this lab, excuse me, finds all these earlier versions of her own clone, and they're all either dead in sort of formaldehyde or they're severely disabled and dysfunctional. And one of them begs her to kill her. She says, kill me, kill me. And yeah, then Ripley, you know, what's it called when you've got a gun with fire out the end? That thing.
A flamethrower?
Flamethrower, yeah. So she then flamethrowers the entire place. And that, you know, that film for me, with that scene and also with Winona Ryder, sorry, Carl, another big spoiler, but with Winona Ryder as a robot, says much, much more interesting things about women as dolls and women as replicas of themselves and women as having to meet some sort of ideal than this Barbie film has done. But that particular sequence with, especially with what's she called, Video Girl Barbie or whatever, reminded me, and was probably deliberate because there's so many references in the Barbie film, was probably a deliberate reference to Alien Resurrection. Made me very sad, made me think of that scene in Alien and begin to compare the two movies.
And sad because of
the pain, because of the pain of those Ripleys who didn't make it, because of the pain of the Ripley who did make it, who's the perfect Ripley, but who suffers incredibly. Because I don't know which actor played Video Girl Barbie, but I thought she had quite a bit of nuance on her face and showed some pain, especially when she says, you know, I have a TV in my back, you know whose dream that is, nobody's dream. She's basically saying, I am completely fucked. Nobody wants me. Yeah, so it made me sad. It made me think about all the experimentations on women's bodies that have been done over, you know, literally hundreds of years in the name of science. And, you know, maybe that's a long bow to draw, but I think one of the things this Barbie film does is it does have space for people to make all sorts of interpretations. So that was one of my interpretations. I wonder if you had any thoughts about that montage that was towards the end when Barbie is made to look at what will happen to her if she chooses to stay in the real world. And it's a montage that Greta Gerwig collected from the home videos of people from her cast and crew. And it supposedly shows the whole range of emotions that a real woman will feel.
The only thing I noticed about that was that it seemed to be about being a mother. That was what I remember. By that stage in the film, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. This is supposed to be her experiencing what being human is really like, but it just showed, it didn't look very painful to me.
There was no pain.
And there were a lot of, it was all kind of soft focus, like it seemed like there were kids in it, babies in it.
Yeah, it was real home movie footage. So it wasn't, I guess, given that it was that, it wasn't going to show the crucial parts of being human, and specifically
didn't have any cellulite in it. I didn't see cellulite there.
And no abuse, no failure, no poverty, and no loss.
Yeah, and no physical pain.
Yeah.
And no sexual assault.
Yeah, I did think when just instance before that sequence, I thought, oh God, we're going to get something. We're going to get something about sexual abuse or about something.
Domestic violence.
And then it was just nothing. But I guess how could the Barbie do anything? How could the Barbie movie do anything different? It had, it's Warner Brothers.
It's just an exercise in rebranding a bit of intellectual property to get a bigger market. And the fact that my friend's 18-year-old daughter thinks the movie's feminist and thinks Barbie's cool. The fact I saw some dude who looked pretty queer to me traipsing down the middle of Schillerkeeds, wearing Doc Martens, funky shorts, coloured hair, and a Barbie T-shirt, which perhaps can be interpreted as ironic. I just think it's a very successful movie.
It's certainly being lauded as a kind of very queer movie.
But it's not queer in any way.
You thought that it was turfy. Tell me more about that.
Well, just that the thing that makes Barbie the real human woman is that she's got a vagina now. She's going to, that whole scene at the end is set up to make us think she's off to a job interview. And it turns out, no, she's off to her gynecologist. It's a funny joke. It's kind of a funny one-liner, but it's sort of saying, oh, so being a real human woman is to have a vagina.
But I think there's shades there. I don't think it's quite that, because let's remember that Dr. Barbie in the film is played by a trans woman.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
I thought it was really interesting that the trans actor got, and of course it's a token trans actor, but there's a token everything in the film. The token trans actor played Dr. Barbie, which I thought was interesting. And I just wondered at the end, how did Barbie get that vagina? Like, did she have to have
Maybe she's going there to get a vagina?
Reassignment surgery?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. I felt sad. I didn't mind that she had a vagina. I think that makes sense. If her feet went flat in the real world, other parts of her body would also change.
Mm-hmm.
She got cellulite. She is going to become a cis woman, right?
Mm.
But what was sad for me was that she was going to the gynecologist. So it was a medicalized genitals. She wasn't like
having sex,
going, just discovering her clitoris, buying a vibrator, or like just even kind of putting her hand down her underpants and going, ooh, with a big smile, just something. It was about examination and medicalization and having an expert look at it rather than about anything to do with her sensorium. And that
the studios were never going to allow.
Of course not. So, it was radical in its own way. I don't think it's quite mic drop the way that people have been saying, that final line. She's just going to the gynecologist, it's not mic drop.
It's weird. I just wonder what a screenwriter like Charlie Kaufman would have come up with, or Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South Park. Goodness. I just feel like it just wasn't quite as clever as it was made out to be. It wasn't a great script.
Well, I think part of the hype around this is that people around this movie has been because people finally feel that they can be comfortable in a cinema. And
well, I know that, yeah, I'm definitely part of the hype from the kind of studio business side is they're trying to get people into the cinema. I mean, the whole Barbenheimer, you know, the sort of go and see Barbie, then go and see Oppenheimer. Like it's all been about.
And get dressed up.
Yeah, like turn it into.
Make it very much a real world experience.
So they're trying to work out ways of getting younger people back to the cinema and to go to the cinema more than once, you know, see the same film more than once. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. It did make me think when I saw Barbie, I thought, oh, maybe I will go and see Oppenheimer. Like maybe both these films are about whether or not we should create things that kill us.
So you're likening Barbie to the atom bomb. And
facetiously.
Apparently there are billions of Barbies in the world, and each Barbie is made up of 4 kinds of toxic material. There's an eco Barbie now, though, but get this, her head and hair are still toxic.
That's pretty funny.
Oh my God, yeah.
What else did you have in your notes?
Well, I want to talk about cosmetic surgery and Barbie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that is the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah. But I also wondered, you know, you and I were both completely unconvinced by ordinary Barbie at the end. Mm-hmm. I hated ordinary Barbie. I thought there could be no one more boring.
In the film or just like?
In the film. In the film, that concept, in the speech at the end, why can't we have an ordinary Barbie? And then the Mattel boss saying, no, that won't work, but then doing the numbers and saying, oh, yes, it's a great idea. I would like to see, I don't want a different Barbie. I just want Barbie to go, really.
Just no Barbie. You want no Barbie.
I want invisible Barbie. I want flamethrower.
Did you have dolls when you were a kid?
My mother is a really good feminist, and I think the first Barbie was 1959, so I would have been prime age for early Barbies.
Mm-hmm.
I was born 65, and I don't think I ever had one. What I had was a doll called Sita, who was made out of a tea towel, but the tea towel had a kind of, as I recall, the tea towel had it was kind of a pattern as well. So my mum cut out the pattern of Sita. She was an Indian doll, mm-hmm. and sewed her and stuffed her with, my mum stuffed her with her own old stockings. Mm-hmm. And Sita had a sari and a little top underneath the sari. And I adored her. I slept with her every night. I held her in a certain position every night. Secretly, I still have Sita. Mm-hmm. She was chewed by a dog a couple of times, and a couple of different dogs, I think, but I do still have her wrapped up in my bottom drawer.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
And I don't recall any other dolls. My brothers had teddies. I don't recall any teddies. Crucially, I don't recall playing with Sita. I only spoke to her and slept with her. Mm. I was more into bikes and books. Yeah. What about you?
My mum was not into dolls. She did make me one. It was a knitted one. It was called, I think, Matilda, which was sort of woolen but stuffed. Different coloured wool for different, you know, like face and whatever. I'm not sure where that is. I suspect my brother might have it. We had bears. We had a big bear. But I wasn't into dolls either. And I didn't really play with Matilda. I was more into Lego and mechanical stuff that moved, cars and trucks and playing sport and, bikes. Yeah. Like my mother did not like Barbie.
I reminded my daughter yesterday that I still have a Barbie head that was hers. So she detached the head from the body, and she stuffed the head with that aluminium foil and also gave it a kind of side. She's got like half a mohawk.
Okay.
And I've kept that head, and I reminded my daughter of it yesterday, and she told me that it was Terminator Barbie. People kept giving my daughter Barbie, like when she was into horses, people gave her like equestrian Barbie and stuff. I don't think I ever bought her a Barbie, but at one point I think she had quite a lot, and pretty much they all became Weird Barbie. And I think that's what happens to most Barbies. No kid keeps their Barbies pristine. Adults might. Every Barbie is played with too hard. You know, every Barbie ends up as Kate McKinnon, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that would have been a better ending.
Exactly.
A bunch of weird Barbies in Kendom.
They're all pretty much ruined or improved.
Yeah.
My daughter and her friends were improving their Barbies.
Yeah, iterate.
One scene I did really love, like probably the only real feminist scene in the movie, was the opening one with the young girls smashing those baby dolls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I thought that was pretty radical. I mean, pretend mothers cracking open their pretend babies' heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it did set things up. It did set us up for being disappointed, though, I think. But yeah, it was pretty funny, that scene.
It set the bar too high.
Yeah. So what did you want to say about cosmetic surgery?
Oh, probably the things that everyone knows. There are lots of living Barbies now. These are women who, have over the last couple of decades become more common. They're women with a huge amount of cosmetic surgery, and several of them, there are at least 10, there's probably more than that in the world, who say that they are living Barbies. The first one that I know of was Cindy Jackson, who is American. I don't know. Throughout the 2000s, she said she was turning herself into a living Barbie. As far as I know, she was the first one. And she used every cosmetic surgery you can imagine. Eye lifts, nose jobs, cheek implants, lip enhancement, dentistry, chin reduction, or you could have a chin augmentation if that was what you needed, jaw reshaping, facelifts, breast implants in, breast implants out, all the rest, dermabrasion, chemical peels, fat transfers. I'm actually reading from her old website, liposuction, filler injections, laser treatment. And I think what we could safely add to that, although Cindy Jackson in the 2000s didn't mention it, now what we would add to that is the labiaplasty surgeries, which were one of the fastest growing surgeries over the last decade or so. And those are the surgeries that basically aim to make vulvas look as close to something that Barbie would have or not have compared to what any woman, cisgendered or transgendered woman, would have. Because as we know, Barbie's got nothing. And what the kind of labiaplasty surgeries in the West aim for is to have absolutely nothing showing, except for a little slit that then, once a person opens their legs, you can then see labia minora, which must not be visible from the outside, and you can see the opening of the vagina and the clitoris, but none of those things are visually available once you've had, sort of standard labiaplasty. And labiaplasty consists of, several operations. It's not one operation. It's several to create this look. And of course, there's hardly any point to labiaplasty unless you have no pubic hair as well. And it all kind of began with the complete removal of pubic hair as part of fashion and in line with the ubiquity of porn and the imperative to be able to see everything in porn.
Yeah, that link you sent, the Barbie procedure.
Yeah.
Which is what you've just described. In the blurb there, they credit a Turkish doctor for pioneering it.
Yeah, that's not true. That's just marketing. I mean, maybe that Turkish surgeon has trademarked, the Barbie thing. I don't think so, though. No, it's been sort of euphemistically called the Barbie for at least a decade. And probably the surgeon who led the way with it is a Brazilian or a guy in Beverly Hills called Matlock. I forget his first name, second name's Matlock. But no, that cosmetic surgeons love claiming to be the pioneer of something or other, but, they rarely are.
Because the other thing on that website was sort of claims about how having labia that protrude is somehow not sexually, it detracts from sexual enjoyment. But that's not the case. It's kind of the opposite.
Yes, exactly. This is the way cosmetic surgeons market things, right? They medicalize them. So, for example, they call large breasts macro. If you have large breasts that you don't want, a surgeon will happily label them as macromastic. You are suffering from macromastia. Yeah. Men with breasts are suffering from gynomastia. People with breasts that are too small are suffering from micromastia, right? Doesn't matter what size they really are, you can get a name for them so they can be medicalized, so they can be changed into something else.
Yeah.
And that thing on a different person would have a different name if they wanted it changed. And so in terms of labia minora, what you do, what one of the surgeries does is it reduces the size of the labia minora, and often in tandem increases the size of the labia majora in order to get that kind of closed book look, or closed. It's also been called coffee bean, a coffee bean look. And of course, it reduces the amount of sensitive skin. It reduces the amount of sensitive tissue. But perhaps if you're only thinking about heterosexual penis to vagina intercourse, then a larger or normal sized labia minora is going to get in the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're medicalized in all sorts of ways. There's another procedure that kind of uncovers the clitoris by reducing the clitoral hood, which makes that, of course, a lot more sensitive, sometimes excruciating. Sometimes it gives people agony afterwards. But the idea, I think, is that it makes it much easier for orgasm to be achieved without much effort, which again kind of calls up ideas of heterosexual penis-vagina intercourse being the primary way to achieve orgasm. And of course, it is possible, but it's very rare. We know how the clitoris works now. We know what it looks like. We know that it's a very big internal organ. We know that it doesn't have much connection with the vagina. Yeah. So So that was, there's this, let's call them the Barbie vulval procedures that are, kind of big in cosmetic surgery at the moment. So it was interesting for me that was the last line of the Barbie movie as well, was about, it wasn't about labia or vulvas or vaginas. It was about going to the gynecologist. But is it a kind of reversal? Is it kind of like, Barbie does have genitals, but maybe if I were to create a Barbie, if I were to have to create a Barbie, it would be genital Barbie. I'd give her a big old vag with some hairs on it and plenty of labia minora.
Go, Meredith.
That's my Barbie.
I think we should end on that. I think that's a really good way to leave it.